Joe. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Joe. Happy birthday to you. Because I know it's your birthday tomorrow, right?
You are perfect. And yes, tomorrow it's my birthday eve today. So
Birthday Eve. Well, that's right. That's a very good time to have cake. I mostly am impressed with the fact that I was able to figure out which backgrounds would show up like the right way around. So it should not be mirrored for you. So really the hard work is done.
well, I appreciate you taking that time and making me smile and just really making my day. Um,
Yay.
I'm excited to hear from you, and I have a lot of questions that I want to ask you. But before I ask you anything myself,
Yes.
there's actually a fan of yours who had sent some questions, and he speaks French. So he had sent some questions that I got via email that I was going to ask you. Just a couple things that he wanted to know, if that's okay with you, before I get.
Sure.
This person's name is Joel. That is asking the questions. He
Sure.
wanted to know about. He had a Final Fantasy question. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
he and I'm I am paraphrasing,
Okay.
but he said, you started with Prish,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that you had worked through multiple Final Fantasy games. He wanted to know how you initially had gotten started as being cast in that game, and whether or not you were familiar playing any of the games before featuring in the series.
That's a great question because it sets me up so that I can answer any part of it. So I really appreciate that, Joel. So when I started voicing video games, I started to be aware of Final Fantasy very quickly, and there was something about the aesthetic of it, even never playing, that made me want to be a part of it. Then I really got a handle on the idea that it's this sort of family of games, and it was like a little personal goal. So when I was cast as Prish, which to answer your question was absolutely an audition, right? Um, I was ecstatic because I wasn't positive if it was Final Fantasy, but I saw that it was Square Enix, and I just remember being so excited, and I was really giddy. And I was like, "Thank you for bringing me into the family." And then, from there on, they've been so kind to me, and I really do mean that. They've all been collaborative and generous, and I've had the pleasure and the opportunity to play a lot of different fun characters across their entire breadth. And in terms of playing, a lot of voice actors will tell you the same thing I will, which is that we're so busy, it's hard to play. We are so busy, it is hard to play. I also know myself pretty well, and if I let myself really go down the video game rabbit hole, I don't know how I would crawl out of it. I am a big fan of, to me, one of the things I think is so beautiful about games is that games have the potential to help resolve an existential crisis. To me, it's not just about mortality, it's about the fact that our lives can go in infinite directions, but we will only ever know the one path we take. And with games, we have this opportunity to inhabit a character that perhaps might feel like ourselves or might feel like a fantasy version of ourselves, and explore possibilities, and then even play the game again and make different choices, the things we can't do in real life. So I know that for myself, that would be really tempting because I always want to see every possibility. So instead, I stick to voicing them, and I watch a lot of cutscenes. I really like to see not just what I've done, but I do check up on that stuff. I want to see how the performance came across. I want to see the collaboration at the end. But I also like to keep up with what's happening in the industry and what's being created and how stories are being told. So I feel pretty well versed for a person who is not a player.
I think that's a perfect answer. And actually, the way you answered it, I have kind of a sidebar I wanted to ask. If I remember correctly, I think you have you majored in psychology, you're a psychology major, or something along
I
those lines.
I actually have a master's in psychology.
Master's in psychology.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, Master Julie, the way you answered the question about like looking into like the video games being therapeutic and being able to, is that something that you feel like you is that something that you felt like you learned like through your schooling to become the
Mm.
master of psychology, or is that just kind of like your take on things and the way that you compared to the way that you cathartically use other outlets?
I think it's much more my perspective. It's certainly not something that I remember being taught in graduate school. But I think I am deeply aware of how much I love the concept of possibility, the concept of curiosity, trying to shift uncertainty into anticipation, excitement, wonder. And all of those are reframes that I work with in myself. So being able to see this sort of wide and almost overwhelming landscape of a video game world as an opportunity to explore something that I can't in my more limited waking life is something that feels peaceful to me. And I love being a part of it. So I think it comes a little bit more from perhaps a blend of that introspection that I kind of come with, and sure, some schooling and understanding of psychology and the ways in which I think we're all trying to soothe whatever discomfort we might have.
That your answers are so well informed. Like, wow, that was
Thank
amazing.
you.
So the last question from Joel before I
Hmm.
start asking you things I want to know.
Sure, no
Um,
problem.
he had said that, obviously you've portrayed both DC and Marvel characters in your career, and you voiced a lot. But he wants to know if there's anybody that you didn't get a chance to voice that you would like to voice, DC or Marvel wise. I know that's a very broad question, um, but that is what Joel would like to know.
My favorite part of the question is it sort of presupposes that I've exhausted all of the characters. I'm like, is there anyone left that you'd like to voice? I don't. I don't have someone like on my list. I've been pressured to answer that question, and I'll come up with something. It's no secret that I love Wonder Woman, and that's sort of an easy answer. But the thing that gives me pause is so many of my wonderful colleagues and friends have voiced Wonder Woman. And there's no part of me wanting to compete with or vie for this voice that my friends have done so beautifully. I really respect the work that's been there. So it's hard for me to have an aspiration toward a character that has already been voiced, because to me, that's already the entity it is. I think I just want to continue telling stories. I want to continue playing superheroes and supervillains and normal, regular civilians, and just continue that range. And there is something really special, Joel, my new friend. Um, ça va bien? Um, so, Joel, I feel like working for DC and Marvel is like one of the ultimate ways I feel like I'm returning to childhood. You know, like choosing to have a career in the creative arts to me has to stem from passion or love or an interest in play, imagination, right? And so when I'm really having fun, then I'm really in the element of why I chose to do this in the first place. Yeah, I mean, of course, I had my Wonder Woman lunchbox. Of course, I've always, I remember watching the Superman movies with my dad, and we would pore over them and go back over little parts and try to figure out like why can't kryptonite be felt through this, and just everything about the comic book world. And for me, of course, it's DC Marvel growing up was about the play of storytelling in a kid's language. And so whenever I'm invited to play, and eat at the Marvel or DC table, or have the birthday cake. See how I bring it back to my background. Um,
Full
I
circle.
guess I get full circle. I guess I just feel like I have permission to tap into being a kid again, which maybe that's a little secret special thing that we get to do as performers, is like access being a kid again by trade.
And I think that you take the ego out of it, like the way you talk about the characters and you focus on the characters, and it's not even just about how you could portray the character, it's about what's best for the character. And when you talk about other voice actors or other voice actresses, and you're like, that is that character. And you, even when you talk about Belle, like living up to and trying to, the character's already there. You are trying
Mhm.
to portray that character, not be Julie as Belle. And I think that is super, super um, respect respectable. Sorry, I lost the
Thank
word
you.
as I was going to say. Yeah, I think that is, I hold you in high esteem for that. Like I
Thank
feel
you.
like you have negative ego, which you've got, hundreds of accomplishments that could definitely fuel that. So that is a great accomplishment on your end. But I
Thank you.
wanted to, before I talk about Batman, I
Okay.
wanted to ask about what you thought about Black Widow, because when we talked before, we touched on Yelena. Oh, is that gotcha? Okay,
Only, but I'll
understood.
get back to you. I will,
Understood.
trust me. I'll get back to you. Afterwards. We'll talk.
No worries. No worries. Okay. Yeah, I didn't.
No,
No
it's okay.
worries. And we've talked about her before, but so
No,
to
it's literally that I haven't let myself see it yet.
oh,
It's literally that I haven't let myself see it yet.
you haven't seen it.
I haven't let myself see it yet.
Oh, I
It's
got
I
you.
was saving it, and then I wasn't able to watch it at the time I was going to, and now I'm sort of arranging something else to watch it. So I have been spoiler free. I have been like, I have my Twitter set so that I can't see anything, and I ignore so I'm just like, I'm not ready to talk about it yet. I didn't let myself watch it. I know that's the strangest answer because I was so excited, but
Mhm.
yeah, that's
Well,
my
I know
honest
that
answer.
you had wanted to. I can't remember if it's Brittany Bailey.
It
Who?
was Laura Bailey.
Laura. I'm sorry,
Laura,
Brittany.
yeah, Laura
I
and I
went to school
had
with Brittany
hoped.
Bailey. Laura
Hi, Brittany.
Bailey.
No, yeah, yeah,
Laura
yeah,
Bailey is Natasha to your
yes.
Yelena. So
My
are-
Yelena.
I know you
Yeah,
had planned on watching it with her, but
we had wanted to go. Yeah,
I
so
won't
I.
say
I'll get
anything
back to
else.
you. I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect, perfect. Then let's talk about Batman.
indeed.
Spoiler free. I understand. I done a little bit of research and some of the questions that you've already been asked. So I know that
Oh,
yeah. So hopefully I don't retread ground, but I know that you did not do your lines with Josh. Is it Duhamel?
Josh Duhamel. Yeah.
Jamel, you didn't do your lines alongside him, and I know that your voice coach had kind of worked with you on the lines opposite you. But did you do any work in the booth with Ackles, or is that something you didn't get to do either?
All of the work that I did, and I think this is true for all of us in that movie, was solo, which happens a lot. Certainly with video games, it's the norm, and with animation, it's hit or miss these days. But it was completely solo, and it surprises even me when I watch the movies that Josh and I were not in the same room, and Jensen and I were not in the same room, and something I don't know, it sounds a little bit, well, you've met me, it's extra sparkly anyway, right? But like, there's something a little magical about that, because the chemistry that I think certainly Josh and I had, and really being able to create that relationship between Gilda and Harvey was so important, really for his development, as well as, of course, plot oriented reasons. I think to be able to hear their relationship and see their relationship and feel like it was so connected, even for me watching it, I think there has to be some element of magic in that. I definitely felt it as I was doing saying my lines and working the scene with Wes Gleason, our voice director on this movie. But then hearing Josh opposite what I had done, and then in ADR, watching it come together and sort of peppering back in whatever I wanted to add to the scene or whatever they needed me to, was really wild. And the same thing can be said for the times that, as Gilda, I get to hang out with Batman. And, there are some really powerful scenes. And it's actually stunning to me when I watch it. That even Jensen and I did not have the opportunity to work together. We met for the first time doing the Entertainment Weekly panel. So
Really?
I was
Well,
like, hey, what's up? It's Batman. We're so excited for you.
that's cool that you got to at least hang
Yeah.
out with Echoes a little bit, though.
Yeah, he's
Uh,
lovely.
so obviously there's two parts, part one and part two for the Long Halloween.
Yes.
But did you do your voice, except for the ADR and the after bits, did you do your voice lines for the two films at the same time, or the two
Mm-mm.
parts at the same time? I mean,
Nope, separately.
okay.
Separate sessions.
Had you known from jump that it was going to be a two-parter?
Yes, from the beginning, I knew it would be a two-parter. Yeah, I don't think that was ever a question by the time I signed on. But it was, I was, waiting to see what would happen next, just like everyone else.
And when I was doing my research, I had noticed that you had said that you didn't want to look at the source material and kind of muddy up your view of who Gilda was,
Yeah.
but you wanted to check that out after you had done your performance.
Mm-hmm.
And personally, like, I'm a big DC fan, big comic reader, but I'm Gilda Dent is not a character that I'm familiar
Yeah.
with. So I'm curious if you had ever heard of her before reading for her, and then what your thoughts were once you did go back and check out the source material post performance.
Well, you and I have spoken before, so I feel like there has to be a point at which I rambled to you about how important it is to me to do as much research as possible, because I like to have a handle on whatever I need to know to make a character grounded for me. And then to make the character real emotionally for me, I have to find a way to empathize with the character. I approached Gilda differently. I just had a feeling. Um, I certainly knew, I had heard of course, Batman the Long Halloween, just sort of floating about the DC world. And I think I had simply known Gilda Dent's existence. I knew Harvey had had a wife, but didn't know a whole lot about her until I read the script. But I decided not to read the original. I have it in the form of a graphic novel, right? So I chose not to read that until after principal recording was finished, with great respect for the original authors. Jeff and Tim created this incredible story, and it's iconic for a reason. But I wanted to sort of allow Tim Sheridan's interpretation of it to be my only source for Gilda. And trust that what he pulled from that source material would suffice and really be an excellent foundation as my source material. And it was just a feeling, and I think it might have had something to do with the fact that as I have played in the Marvel and DC worlds before, there's so much research to do, especially if you're playing an iconic role, especially if you're playing a role that has been a superhero or a villain. And I think it can be really fun to lean into paying homage to other performances, but Gilda is so human. And I wanted to keep her very real. She exists in this heightened world of Gotham. She exists with heightened people around her, whether she knows it or not at times. And to let her just be her. I didn't want to then make her this magnanimous character with so much behind her and enriched by every image I'd seen, which I tend to like to do. I just wanted her to be real for me. So I just took what was on Tim's page. And then after we finished principal recording, I immediately read the graphic novel, which I have. I could look over, but you just have to trust me that it's there. It's like,
I
what's
prefer
over
the
here for the
I prefer
birthday?
the birthday cake. Yeah.
The birthday cake.
Yeah, I'll take the cake.
It's going to be really confusing if someone just tunes in. Like, was it her birthday? That like,
Yeah.
why is she? But I read it as soon as I got my hands on it, and I was so pleased. I was so happy. It felt congruent, and it also felt like it had been adapted in ways that let the story um, live as a moving picture, live as a moving story. I understood the changes here and there that had been made. They made sense to me, and Gilda still made all the sense in the world to me.
So you had finished principal, your principal stuff, and then you checked out the source material. But after you had checked out the source material, you went back to do a little bit of final voice bits, right?
That is true.
Was it, did you have to, um, like, be present in thinking like, okay, I need to continue the portrayal I had and not let it be affected by the things I've now read? Or do you feel like you already got yourself into that headspace and the Gilda on page was just kind of an extra bit for you?
I think my answer is going to sound very like artiste. So forgive me if it's
I love your answer. Go for it.
okay. All right, I will stop apologizing for the answers I haven't given yet. My experience playing Gilda again, because I had wanted to make her real for me and was dedicated to making her a very real person. Once I was back in the booth doing ADR, I wasn't thinking about source material. I wasn't thinking about what I had seen, what I had read, images from the graphic novel versus what I was seeing on the screen. I was in the relationship with Harvey. I was in a relationship talking to Batman. I was in a relationship and there are fireworks going off and I'm talking to, and Gordon's there. And those moments were just exactly what they were. And I don't always get to talk like this about the characters I play. In the past couple of years, I've been challenged in wonderful ways to play characters that go a lot deeper. And Gilda's one of them. And I've found that it's such an internal experience. It's one of the reasons why, to me, Gilda was quiet. To me, she was very quiet. She had to be quiet. She's really in her own inner world. Not in the same way that, Bruce Wayne has his secret identity as Batman. But in so far as her emotional life, her conflict, her turmoil, her trauma is with her. And that push-pull of wanting to connect and disconnect, wanting to be guarded, but still wanting Harvey to connect with her, to feel love, was so real and so quiet. And we tend to portray things like trauma and pain, emotional or otherwise, in this really big shouted way, right? But there's enough shouting going on in that world, and we don't always do that. Sometimes we're just kind of quietly crying in a corner.
I don't think that was too artiste. I think that was a really well put answer. So yeah, you shouldn't be apologizing ahead of time for these things.
All right.
I'm
sorry.
Oh, here you go. No, so yesterday, I think it was yesterday, my fiance was telling me, you need to stop saying sorry for existing. And I'm like, okay. So that now passes on to you.
Right.
I'm paying
Thank
that
you.
forward.
We're gonna have a sorry jar, right? We'll each put $1 in the sorry jar.
Maybe a nickel. I don't know if I got that many dollars.
Okay, good to know.
But you did a couple. You came back as Samantha Maxwell. Was that only your second time playing her, or was that, because I know that she was in at least 2 games, and I haven't played all the Call of Duty games, but I know that you recently voiced her, and you had voiced her like a decade ago for the first time, I think. Can you tell me more about that character and how that journey has grown alongside you?
Absolutely. And I love the phrase grown alongside you, because I've had a lot of a lot of the players, a lot of the fans say, I grew up with Samantha Maxis, or she was, part of my childhood. And then to see her turn into an adult has been so moving. I had the same experience, even though I'm not a player. I played Samantha Maxis for the first time. The first game I remember voicing her in, right, which is to say, it's possible that my chronology is off, but the first one I remember doing was the Moon Map. And that was over 10 years ago. And she was a little girl, and she had a pretty tortured childhood. And she had a lot of, demons to fight, metaphorical and otherwise. And she was a wild character to play. She was fun to play. There were times that she was, demonically possessed, and times that she was, in many ways, tortured and emotionally harmed. And we watched her go through many different stories. I know doing the end of Black Ops 4, when we did Alpha Omega and Tagged or Toten, these stories had this feeling of kind of wrapping up, and these men who had been part of Samantha Maxis's life, were sort of we're watching different iterations of these stories come to a close. And I didn't expect, after the end of that game, that I would even necessarily see her again. And I had to swallow saying that because it was emotional. I really do feel closeness with her. I think if a person were to see a clip of Samantha Maxis, singing nursery rhymes with a demonic screaming voice and a laugh that can peel paint off of walls, it would seem odd that a person is saying that there's an emotional connection. But if you know the story, it makes more sense. So then, I get this call. I guess it was, it's hard to tell because 2020 didn't happen. So
Right?
let's assume, I actually don't know. Let's say it was within the past 2 years. I really, the time has no meaning anymore.
Right.
They said, you have a booking, and you're gonna go in and play Samantha Maxis. And I have told the story before, so I apologize if this is one of the interviews you've already seen, but this was my experience, since you're asking about what it was like.
Yeah, no, tell me.
And I went, oh, this is so exciting. I get to play Samantha Maxis again. I love her, my girl. And, I dress in ways for jobs that will help me evoke a character. I'm not always cosplaying a character when I go in, because a lot of times that would just be noisy material. But I like to have that feeling of evoking a character. So I had one of my little dress on, and I put my combat boots on, and I arrive and they're like, well, she's an adult now. And I was so moved by the concept, by the fact that I was being invited back to keep playing her. That's not always the case, to be able to take this character through a journey of her life like that. And really excited to see where the story could go when we see where could Samantha Maxis have gone with her life if we got to see her grow up, and then here she is. So it was moving and exciting. And then, wow, this journey for Call of Duty Cold War has been wild. Really getting to explore some of her independence, and I think some of her own agency in ways we haven't been able to see before. And so, yeah, I do feel like I grew up alongside her too, in a way.
And just from following you on Twitter, I see you retweeting fan stuff all the time. Fans seem to really love Samantha Maxis. I think I've seen fan art, some other things that you've retweeted, and it seems like you really resonated with them. with that character, which is, it's cool because it means so much to you. I feel like that's a little
Yeah.
bit of the other side of that coin. You know, obviously it means a lot to other people too.
Yeah.
Um, small question. Did you? I think I saw you did a bit on Love, Death, and Robots.
I did. That's true.
Can you
I
tell me
did.
about that? Because that show is so well. Series is so crazy, like so
It's
insane.
incredible.
Can you tell me about like
Yeah.
your episode?
Yeah. I am in Snow in the Desert. And I play two characters. One is Jarila, and the other is a mech. I can't think of how that character is credited, but two very different voices in there. Yeah, that was another one of those situations where I just sort of went, I'm sorry, you want me to do, you're going to let me be a part of this? I get to be a part of this experience. And it was fantastic. I mean, the writing is tremendous. And volume 2, which is the last season that came out, I am so struck by even the varied animation styles. The stories are all different. The animation styles are so different. The one, gosh, I wish I want to like cheat and look. Hold on, let me see if I can pull up the names of the episodes. I won't do it, but the the story about the giant, I don't know if you saw that one,
I I,
was
I don't
really like,
remember.
it's hard to like, some of them are just so wonderfully hard to watch, and so evocative. And also, I'm watching, and then there's this one episode where my dear friend Nolan North plays this character, and he's just so fabulous. It's just, the whole series is so brilliant and so different, and a great example of what happens when animation gets elevated the way it has been. So many exciting stories are being told, so many different stories. Animation is so not just for kids, and we've known that, many of us have known that for a long time. But now to see animation and more adult animation have this special place, on streaming on Netflix or any number of platforms, is really wonderful. And it to me just falls perfectly in line with the abundance of the voiceover world and of the animation industry and the games world, that there's so much that is constantly being generated. And the more platforms we have, the more storytellers can feel like their stories can be told.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I feel like there's mediums, like different mediums help open perspective. And it's just
Yeah.
like Batman, you know, maybe people won't necessarily um uh relate to certain characters, but like
Yeah.
maybe a lot of people who've never read The Long Halloween see this and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to check this out in animation. That looks really cool." And
Yeah.
I think that opens up perspective to share stories to with people who wouldn't normally check them out. Before I wrap, did how has
You're
the
gonna rap?
I mean, I can rap for you
Oh, I
if you really
so
want me
want
to.
to hear this. That's all right. I
Oh,
won't put you on the spot the day before your
I was
birthday.
gonna
That's
say
okay.
not for my birthday.
You can
Hmm.
rap for my birthday.
Oh,
It's
okay. I
fine.
got
Yeah.
you. I'll get you. I'll get
You've
you.
got time. Don't worry. Go on, please. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
That's okay. You're allowed. You're allowed 3 interruptions. After that, I just straight cut you off. So
It's a lot of pressure. Damn it, that was another one. Go on.
this is kind of going off of the last question Joel had asked. And basically to summarize what he was wanted to know was how has the voice industry changed, voice acting industry changed, not just video games, animation, but the actual process of voice recording. How has
Mm.
that changed since you started to now? Uh, Sorry. How has that
Hi,
changed?
puppies. Hello, puppies.
Sounds
Hello,
like
puppy.
sounds like my fiance's home. So I'm gonna mute myself after I ask this question. How has the voiceover industry changed and evolved?
Well, when I started in voiceover, I started on the East Coast. I started in New York. And at the time, the norm in New York City was, you would go on the subway all day from studio to studio, audition to audition, job to job, wherever you were. And it was just a constant experience of movement, going again from like one studio to another, one casting to another. Um, Coming to Los Angeles, everything was really centralized at the time at our agency. So I would go to the agency and oftentimes wait for a long period of time till it was my turn to go in the booth, do my thing, and then leave, and then hope to wait for a call that there might be a job. Um, since the beginning, at least of my career, all of these things have evolved, and some of them have become less social, which is the only place where I feel some loss with the evolution of voice recording. Again, in New York, I would meet friends, make friends on the subway because I was just constantly in transit and in flux, going from thing to thing, or sitting in a waiting room or in a casting office. Then moving out to Los Angeles and being sitting on the floor at CESD, making friends as we're all sitting there together reading on things, was such a social experience. Now, so many of us, especially, post lockdown world, have been recording from home. So we're even more in this isolated space. I'm a person who's extra collaborative by nature. It's something that draws me to the creative arts because I believe that even art that is created by one person in one small place, the minute another person lays eyes on that artwork, it has become collaborative, if only by the interpretation of the viewer. So once you add in audience, but also every creator, every animator, every musician, every person coding, directors, writers, there are so many people coming together to create whatever it is that we're all making together. So I'm able to keep that in my mind. And it's one of the reasons why, you're right. I tend not to sort of say, well, my thing and what I did and my career and my voice. It's like, all right, well, I'm a part of a big thing. But that's an intentional space for me to continue to hold. It could be very easy to stay in a space of isolation because we do so much on our own, or we do so much from our home studios. On the other hand, one way in which it has expanded that community has been that there's so much more access. People can have their home studios and be anywhere. And, during the pandemic was the only time I've ever agreed to do coaching or teaching. I've never wanted to be certainly a didactic teacher and here's what you do and here's how to be a voice actor. But I do like to help people bring out what they can to make a character real for them, or to sort of stay true again to their core and find their empathy for a character. So I said yes, and I started doing that here and there. And I noticed how many new voice actors were taking the time to study and learn. And I found that so exciting. And that is what the technology and the evolution of voice acting has provided, is really space for so many more people to get involved. And again, it's always collaborative. So that's just from a recording standpoint.
That was a hell of an answer. Before I start rapping,
Yeah.
um,
Rapping?
yeah,
I didn't get a present, but I do have this lovely happy birthday background for you.
Yeah, no, you owe me a gift. You owe me a
Yeah, I do.
gift.
No, I
That song,
totally do.
your
Absolutely.
sing song voicing was not enough. It's like, you're a voice actor. That's your job. You just
That's my
work
job.
for free for me.
Yeah,
I'll
I
take
did.
that.
Well, but I didn't. But to be totally fair, my happy birthday to you was like, it's just I didn't really do a good voice. I mean, just look, I mean, just if we're going to be grading this, I think I could have done better. I think it could have been more Muppety.
I don't know.
I
It's
think,
it's in my heart, so
okay.
I
All
think I
right.
don't want to change it at all. That's
Okay. Okay. It's fine. We don't need to take two. Okay. Go on.
I
Yes.
might,
Hello.
if we do a take two, I might do a rap verse. So
Okay, I'm really liking where this is going, Joe. This is great.
So to wrap, uh, I'm going to stop saying that word before I finish.
Mhm.
Is there any projects that you want to plug? Anything that you have coming up? Anything that you would like your fans to know about, or even just social media or websites that listeners and viewers can find you?
Why, thank you. And that is a delightful question. Oh, well, there are a million things I want to talk about that I'm not allowed to. And that's just, it must sound so obnoxious when we all say that, but I just like my job too much to disclose. But I really did love how Eden turned out, which is an anime for Netflix. It's a really beautiful 4 episode series. There are moments that are quite lighthearted. My friend JP Carliak is hilarious in it. And I play opposite Neil Patrick Harris. He and I both have some really intense and emotional things that we both experience in it. So there's certainly plenty of depth to it, and it's really and David Tennant's in it. It's really an extraordinary cast too, but it's just a little 4 episode anime, and I feel really proud of it and loved that. So that's on Netflix if anyone wants to check it out. And always stay tuned to the evolution of whatever's coming next in the Call of Duty world. And I would say, there are some really exciting projects that I hope to be able to either announce soon or, have people experience soon. I never take any of it for granted. I always feel lucky. I'm very aware of how special it is to be able to do this stuff. Um, and let's see if I will say that something I loved being able to do this year. It was a little bit of like a secret goal that I had, was to be able to sing a song in a video game, and to be able to sing the song Lost, which was in Call of Duty Cold War in Firebase Z map. It is the Easter egg. Most people have found it by now, so I apologize if that's a spoiler, but it's probably out there. But I did get to sing this beautiful song, and it was really just incredible, just as an experience. And the song is fantastic. Craig Houston, created this. Really, just the lyrics are unbelievable, and he'd written this song, and then it was adapted and produced for the game. And I'm really just very proud of that. And if anyone wants to check it out, you can find it on the YouTubes. And I'm very active on social media, especially Twitter, because it is more words than pictures. And as you can tell, I am rather verbose, but I'm getting better at Instagram too. But I'm Julie_Nathanson on both.
To kind of just jump off of that Twitter thing, I saw I saw you post, I think it was this week, that your mom wanted to watch the movie
Oh my gosh.
on Halloween, and she sent you an image of her VCR.
That is a true story.
I
Like,
showed
that
it to
is,
my fiance when it happened. I said, would be my mom. Like, this would be my mom.
and here's the thing, like my mom she is a person who I would count on to, like, she is
You cut
like,
out. You cut out. So I don't know
oh
if you were cussing out your mom, but you said my
no,
mom is a person that I could count
that's
on.
hilarious. And it
then it
says
was
my internet connection is unstable, so that's really funny. No, I mean, she's an incredibly brilliant woman. She's somebody who is incredibly capable. But when I said, I don't know, Mom, I'm not sure why it's not playing. Can you just send me a picture of your DVD player? And she sent me the VCR. I just didn't know what to do. And then I said, Mom, that's a VCR. And then later she said, oh, we have a DVD player. And I was like, but okay, but it still didn't work because it's Blu-ray and it's a really old DVD player. So we hooked it up. That was really, it was great though, because that's another thing. Batman The Long Halloween, again, was like such a special experience to me and something I'm legitimately so proud of that like I've asked my mom to watch it. I've been doing this a really long time. So it's a rare thing for me to say, you know, I said to my mom and stepdad, like, I really want you guys to see this. If this is important to me. And that's, you know, I really have been doing this for a long time. And I don't do that very often because I don't, you know, so again, I try not to make it the Julie show anyway. So, you know, um, but they loved it and it was really special to introduce them to it. And now I get to have them watch part 2 because they haven't seen part 2 yet. Because
Oh,
digital
nice.
just came out yesterday, and
That's what
then
I
the
thought.
Blu-ray comes out on I think it's August 10th. So you know,
Nice.
I'll be working the digital for them.
Well, when will they have the VCR for your mom? Like, is there
The VCR, yeah, the
mhm.
VHS, yeah.
Yeah, VHS, yes.
You know,
What is
I'm gonna talk to Warner Brothers in DC. We're just gonna work something out. I'm sure, you know, it's like we're gonna do a whole retro thing. No, no,
there you
don't quote
go.
me on that. That's not happening.
So the to branch off Eden actually, real
Yes.
quick, is this the first anime that you have been involved with?
Actually, it was the second I did my first. Again, all this, it's like during, how do you say, like during lockdown, during quarantine, during COVID. What a weird period of time,
Right? It's like
to say the
we're still
least.
in the pandemic, but
We're
it's like
still in it.
it's
I
crazy.
know. But it was during this period of time. It was during 2020, I think. I did my very first, and it was Great Pretender for Netflix as well, and or on Netflix. And that was also a wonderful experience. I was very excited. I was giddy that it was my first, and then
Yeah,
I got to do a second.
that's cool. And then Eden is already on Netflix, you said?
It
And
is,
it's four
yeah,
episodes. Is that a
4 episodes.
limited series or is there a second season potentially?
Uh, all I know is that that's what it was. I mean, I absolutely loved it and would love to see it have more life. You know, my fingers will stay crossed. It's a really I don't like I don't want to give anything away, but in the way that I loved Wally, there's a little tiny piece of it that has that feeling, and I guess to me, right? Wally has its own aesthetic and it has its own story, but there is something about that. I don't know, that AI, that robot world that I think was I don't know, evoked for me in this. And there are some themes that are pretty. I think that was the other thing with Wally. You know, you're looking at like preservation of the planet. You're looking at, right, like how can we have our planet survive? How can humanity survive?
And just the
Um,
name Eden, I can tell that
yeah,
there's obviously
yeah.
parallels there.
There's some stuff. I don't want to give anything away, but it's really
Yeah,
special.
don't, because I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
don't.
good. Then let me know what you think. Okay.
I will. And here's the thing: I haven't watched Long Halloween, not even part one, because when I found out that you were initially in it, I told my fiance, I said, listen, Julie's in this Batman movie, and she said, oh, that's really awesome. I said, but she's playing, like I said, but Jensen Ackles is Batman, and my fiance loves Jensen Ackles, and she's like, oh my God, you have to talk to her about it. And I was like, all right, I'll talk to her about it, and then we'll watch it. So that's we haven't watched it yet, but we'll do that, and then we'll watch Eden.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize I was holding up the viewing party. I'm really glad we were able to schedule this when we did. I mean, I can't imagine if we'd had to like postpone. What would you have done?
Well, it worked out because now we can watch part one and two back to back. So I'm lucky that you had like rescheduled with me like 10 times.
Sorry about that.
No, I'm just giving you credit.
Oh, I said sorry again. See?
Uh,
A dollar in the sorry jar.
so that sorry, Jar Eden, we've pretty much wrapped everything. Is there any last message that you would like to leave viewers and listeners with before I click off your recording?
No, I just want you to have a really happy birthday, Joe. I
That's
really
very
hope you have a
sweet.
beautiful birthday tomorrow. And I'm really glad that I got to talk to you on the eve of your birthday. I hope that you celebrate yourself. And I hope that you feel celebrated by the people who care for you.
That means a lot. Thank you.